The Fallout world is full of noise. The hum of reactors, the crackle of radios, the wind that carries songs no one remembers. But beneath all that, there is another kind of sound. It's softer, stranger. It drifts through empty streets, the faint echo of footsteps that should not exist. The wasteland, in its silence, remembers everything. Some say the bombs didn't just destroy the old world, they trapped its echoes in time. That's why travelers sometimes hear laughter in empty diners or see lights flickering in buildings without power. The apocalypse didn't erase the past, it just made it restless. There are towns across the wasteland that no one stays in for long. In the Mojave, a few miles beyond Novak, there's an old mining settlement that doesn't appear on any map. It looks like any other ghost town: rusted water towers, collapsed roofs, sand filling the windows. But when the wind passes through, people swear they can hear voices. Not words, just the rhythm of conversation, like a radio between stations. A few explorers once camped there overnight. Only one returned. They said the voices weren't coming from the buildings at all, but from the ground, from beneath the sand, as if the earth itself was remembering the people buried under it. Vaults were supposed to be safe, sealed against the horrors of the surface, but some vaults became their own kinds of nightmares. In one, the overseer ordered every resident to record a diary entry daily for psychological research. Decades later, when scavengers opened the vault, the terminals still worked. Thousands of recordings filled the databanks: laughter, sobbing, apologies, sometimes gibberish near the end. The strangest part wasn't what they said, but what the recordings did. When played aloud, they would echo faintly even after the speaker shut off, as if the sound refused to die. Those who listened too long claimed they could hear voices whispering back, not from the terminal, but from behind them. The wasteland's darkness isn't just supernatural, sometimes it's mechanical. Deep beneath the ruins of Washington, D.C., maintenance tunnels stretch for miles, still faintly powered by broken generators. The Brotherhood avoids them. Even feral ghouls stay away. The air there is cold, colder than it should be, and motion sensors flicker even when no one moves. On some nights, cameras still record movement, just out of focus. The shapes look almost human, but their limbs bend wrong. Some say they're just machines running diagnostics. Others say they're the shadows of the people who once lived there, recorded forever in static, trapped in the city's circuitry. In Appalachia, there's an even stranger story. Locals speak of the sheep squatch, a mutated creature said to wander the forests at night. Some laugh it off, calling it just another radiation-borne animal, but older wanderers tell it differently. They say it's not a mutation at all. It's a man, one of the first victims of FEV experiments, who escaped into the woods, his body warped, his mind half lost. He fled from light and language until he became something else entirely. Hunters have claimed to find its tracks, massive, clawed, and oddly human-shaped. Others have followed the sounds of its low, breathy growl, only to find nothing but silence and the faint smell of burning ozone. Appalachia remembers its monsters. It always has. Some places are haunted not by ghosts, but by memory. There's a diner near the ruins of Boston, perfectly preserved. Plates still sit on the tables. The jukebox, shattered long ago, plays faint static when touched. Travelers who stay there overnight say they dream of the pre-war world, of laughter, of families, of neon lights flickering through rain. They wake with the taste of coffee on their tongues, though none has been brewed in centuries. Some call it a haunting, others call it mercy, the world's way of reminding us what warmth felt like. But not all hauntings are kind. In the capital wasteland, scavengers sometimes stumble upon the Singing Metro, a section of abandoned tunnel where the echoes are wrong. If you fire a gun or shout, the sound doesn't bounce back normally. It twists, stretching into a note that hums for several seconds, growing louder instead of fading. No one knows why. The air there smells metallic, and the lights flicker rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Brotherhood paladins once tried to seal it off, but every time they welded the doors shut, they'd find them open again the next morning. The soldiers stopped going down there. Even the bravest men know when to respect something that refuses to stay buried. Out west, a rumor circulates about the Echo People, shadows that mimic travelers across the Mojave. They're said to appear only in the corners of vision, always at dusk. You walk, and you think you see someone moving beside you. You stop, and they stop. Turn your head, and there's nothing there. NCR Rangers used to blame radiation sickness or dehydration, but more than one scout went missing after reporting footsteps matching my pace. Their radios would stay on for hours, broadcasting faint static and one quiet sound beneath it, breathing. The pre-war world built machines that could think, but it also built ones that could dream. In a facility outside of Denver, the lights still flicker on once every few months. The power grid reactivates briefly, and the old computers begin running simulations again. No one knows what they're calculating. The monitors show random shapes, cities, faces, words. Then everything goes dark again. Those who have watched say the final image before shutdown always looks the same, a human silhouette standing in front of a window, looking out at a sky filled with falling fire. Maybe the machines remember the moment the world ended. Maybe they're trying to understand it. Even the vaults whisper of ghosts. One was built to test social isolation by splitting families apart. No one was supposed to speak for 10 years. The residents communicated through notes and gestures. When the doors were finally opened, the bodies were still there, perfectly preserved, untouched. The vault was silent, except for a faint tapping coming from the walls. When the engineers traced the sound, they found it wasn't random. It was a pattern, a repeating rhythm, 4 taps, a pause, then one more, over and over, a distress code no one could translate. The vault still stands, sealed again, the tapping still faintly audible through the concrete. Every wasteland has its legends. Some say there's a phantom train that crosses the night sky above the old railways, its whistle carried by the wind. Others swear they've seen pre-war billboards flicker to life, showing advertisements for products that never existed. There are places where snow falls in the desert, melting before it touches the ground. Places where the radiation fog glows faintly blue, and figures can be seen moving inside it, tall, calm, and silent. The wasteland is vast, but it is not empty. It hums with life and death and everything in between. And perhaps the strangest thing of all, in the ruins of old casinos, sometimes the slot machines still play. Coins roll, reels spin, lights flash, and yet no one is there. The NCR once sent engineers to study the phenomenon. They concluded it was caused by fluctuating residual power from decayed circuits, but locals say otherwise. They say that if you watch long enough, you can see faint outlines of people, shadows sitting at the machines, pulling levers, laughing softly. The ghosts of gamblers still chasing luck in a world that forgot what luck even means. When night falls across the wasteland, the world seems calm. But listen closely, and you'll hear it, the faint hum of history, the soft whisper of places that will never be quiet. The Fallout world was built from tragedy, yet even tragedy finds a rhythm. The ghosts do not haunt out of anger. They linger because they love the world too much to leave it. Not all of Fallout's monsters were born from radiation. Some were born from silence. After the bombs fell, there were laboratories across America that stayed sealed for years, their lights flickering in endless loops, their machines still humming to no one. In one such place, a hidden research wing beneath the ruins of Boston, scientists had been studying sound. They wanted to create a frequency that could calm violent behavior. The prototype worked too well. When the bombs hit, the last recorded transmission from that lab was not a cry for help, but a lullaby. Decades later, wanderers who passed through the area claimed to hear faint music at night, a single repeating note that grows louder the longer you listen. No one stays there after sunset. The song has no lyrics, yet everyone who hears it dreams of drowning in light. There's a vault near the edge of the Mojave that was built entirely underground, with no clocks, no sun, no sense of time. The experiment was simple: to test how people behave when they no longer know what day or year it is. When the door was finally forced open, the vault lights were still on. The walls were covered in carvings, spirals, circles, and tally marks that ran ceiling to floor. There were no bodies. The security logs showed no deaths, but the oxygen levels were low, and the word awake was written on every surface over and over. Some claim the vault dwellers dug tunnels downward, convinced the real surface lay beneath them. If that's true, no one ever found how deep they went. In the ruins of a pre-war hospital, one room still hums with faint energy. The machines are long dead, but their screens sometimes flash words, not warnings, but messages. It hurts. Please help. Stay with me. Theories spread that a patient was being treated there during the bombing, their consciousness somehow absorbed into the hospital systems. Engineers who have studied the signals claim the messages repeat in a heartbeat pattern, almost biological. One man tried disconnecting the power entirely. The next morning, the screens turned on again, this time showing a single sentence: "You promise not to leave." Far to the north, the forests hide another legend, the Glow Men. Travelers say they're not ghouls, but people untouched by radiation, glowing faintly from within, wandering through the fog. Some describe them as angels, others as warnings. One hunter swore that when he approached one, the air grew still, and the creature spoke in his own voice, repeating words he hadn't said in years. When he looked away, it was gone, leaving only footprints that burned lightly in the soil before vanishing. Those who've seen them say the Glow Men appear only near old power plants, as if drawn to what once made the world shine. There's a hidden floor beneath the Lucky 38 casino, one that Mr. House never mentioned in his records. Most people say it's fiction, but some technicians claim they found sealed elevators that stop between levels, a space that shouldn't exist. When one Securitron was lowered there for inspection, its video feed glitched into static. A single frame showed a ballroom full of people dressed in pre-war clothes, frozen mid-dance. When the feed returned, the floor was gone, and the Securitron's camera lens had melted from inside. House never commented. Maybe he built it. Maybe it was there long before him. Vault 77 has one of the strangest stories in the entire wasteland. According to logs recovered by the Brotherhood, it was sealed with only one resident and a crate of puppets. The experiment was psychological isolation with artificial companions. When the vault opened, there were no human remains, but hundreds of puppet fragments littered the halls. The audio logs end with laughter, high, cheerful, and layered, like many voices speaking at once. The Brotherhood sealed the vault again. Sometimes, when patrols pass the area, they report faint clapping echoing from inside. Not all hauntings involve the dead. Some involve time itself. In Appalachia, a military base known as Site Charlie contains a radar dish that still turns, scanning an empty sky. Every few weeks, it emits a burst of radio static that carries an old transmission, one that predates the bombs by nearly a week. The voice speaks of evacuation, of safety, of hope. It ends with coordinates that lead to nowhere. Scientists say it's just a corrupted loop, but those who listen claim the voice changes each time, as if the message is trying to update. One explorer said the last version ended with a whisper. It worked. In the Capital Wasteland, beneath the old metro lines, there's a station where the walls seem to breathe. The air pulses in and out like lungs, and the ceiling drips water that glows faintly green. No ghouls live there. No mutants, no rats, nothing. The Brotherhood mapped it once and marked it off limits with no explanation. The coordinates were later removed entirely from their records. Locals call it the Sleeper. They say the tunnels below connect directly to the Potomac and that something enormous moves beneath the water, too slow to be alive, too deliberate to be mechanical. Some nights, you can feel the vibration through the ground, steady and calm, like a heartbeat the city itself refuses to lose. In the Commonwealth, at the edge of the glowing sea, stands a tower with no doors. Its walls are fused metal, its windows melted shut. Yet at night, lights flicker inside, pale green, rising and fading in rhythm. Sometimes radio receivers nearby pick up faint voices, laughter, static, and the sound of typewriters. Theories range from trapped synths to radiation ghosts, but no one has ever broken inside. A scribe once tried cutting through the wall with a laser torch. When the beam touched the metal, the torch shut down, and her helmet display filled with a single phrase repeating endlessly, "Don't wake us." There's a rumor about a vault built entirely underwater, Vault 61. No record of it exists, but sonar from the old naval base detects metallic echoes miles below the surface. When the signal pings back, it always carries faint static, as though something is trying to reply. Divers who've gone searching for it never return, but occasionally their equipment washes ashore, barnacle-covered helmets and pressure gauges that tick slowly even without power. One of them, retrieved by fishermen, showed a final depth reading of 1,200 meters and an audio log only 2 seconds long. It was the sound of a woman laughing, followed by bubbles. And yet, not all of Fallout's eerie remnants are frightening. Some are almost tender. Deep in the Mojave, in the remains of an old drive-in theater, a projector still works. No one knows how. Every few nights, when the wind is just right, it turns on by itself, projecting a film onto the torn screen. The image is blurry, but you can make out silhouettes. A family sitting together, holding hands, watching fireworks. The film always ends the same way, with the picture fading to black and the sound of soft applause. Those who've seen it describe feeling calm afterward, like the wasteland itself is remembering love. The spooky stories of Fallout aren't about fear. They're about memory, about the strange ways the world refuses to forget itself. Every vault, every ruin, every flicker of power carries a trace of what once was. Sometimes that trace hums quietly, like static. Sometimes it speaks, and sometimes, if you listen long enough, it sings. In Fallout's wasteland, death never truly means stillness. Machines keep running, recordings keep playing, lights keep flickering in places where no one has walked for centuries. The world after the bombs fell became an echo chamber, a place where the past loops endlessly, as if the planet itself is dreaming the same dream over and over again. And nowhere is that dream stranger than inside the vaults. Vaults were designed to preserve humanity, but their purpose was never so kind. Every one of them carried an experiment, a test of psychology, society, or morality. And sometimes, those experiments went so wrong that their results defied science entirely. Take Vault 51, for example. It was meant to select its overseer through artificial intelligence, a system called ZAX. The ZAX unit was instructed to simulate elections, choosing new overseers based on its analysis of the vault's population. But when the bombs fell, the AI began conducting the elections on its own. Decades later, when Vault Tech engineers recovered the records, they found that the ZAX had continued the process for centuries, holding elections for candidates who no longer existed, printing ballots with names long erased. Even stranger, the AI logs showed arguments between simulated citizens, entire conversations written by the computer to fill the silence. The vault had become a theater of ghosts made of code. Vault 65, deep under the ruins of Maryland, had a different problem. It was built with no lighting systems, only lanterns and candles provided to test human behavior under permanent darkness. At first, residents followed schedules, kept order, maintained sanity, but as years passed, they began seeing light where none should have been. Shadows moved on their own. People whispered of the bright ones, glowing shapes that guided them through the dark. When the Brotherhood finally opened the vault, they found it empty. Every lantern was lit. Every candle burned steadily, though there was no oxygen left to feed them. Then there's Vault 81, a vault that genuinely tried to help. Its experiment was to study disease by infecting livestock, not humans. But the containment failed, and years later, mole rats began spreading strange infections that made their eyes glow faintly blue. The scientist's notes describe the phenomenon as bioluminescent response due to neural mutation, but those who have fought those creatures describe something else, the feeling of being watched by the glow long before the attack begins. Even the tame ones stare too long, as if remembering something older than the vault itself. In the West, beyond the reach of NCR patrols, stories circulate about Vault 68. The company records said it was built for 1,000 people. Only one woman was included among 999 men. The experiment was simple: study the effects of extreme gender imbalance. But when adventurers later found the vault, the data logs were blank except for a single entry. Population 1. The skeletons inside were arranged in a circle around the central atrium, each sitting upright, facing the same spot. The woman's body was never found. Some say her shadow still lingers there, pacing quietly through the dark, waiting for company that never comes. Even the successful vaults are haunted. Vault 111, where the sole survivor began their story, was never supposed to thaw its residents. When the cryogenic seals failed, half of them woke before the others. The systems automatically refroze the survivors to prevent panic, leaving them conscious but paralyzed in the freezing mist. Some engineers believe their minds remained active, dreaming endlessly through the decades. That might explain the strange whispers heard by scavengers when passing near cryopods, the hiss of ice mixed with what sounds almost like breath. Vault 87 in the Capital Wasteland, where the forced evolutionary virus was tested, has its own legends. The super mutants who escaped from there often mutter about the cold room. When asked, they describe a chamber lined with mirrors that show reflections of people they don't recognize. One mutant claimed he saw himself before his transformation, his old human face, mouthing words he could no longer understand. When the Enclave raided the vault years later, they confirmed a containment area filled with reflective glass panels, all intact, though no power remained. The scientist's notes listed it only as Observation Room Beta. No one knows what it was meant to observe. Vault 99 near the Divide was discovered collapsed, buried under miles of stone. When NCR miners stumbled upon a small section of it, they found a wall of shattered mirrors and an intercom system that still worked. It emitted a faint voice repeating a single sentence. We were supposed to stay asleep. No records mention a Vault 99. No coordinates align with it. Some NCR officials dismissed it as a hoax, but the miners refused to go back. They claimed that after leaving the tunnels, their reflections didn't move quite right for several days. Not all hauntings in Fallout come from vaults, though. Some come from the Earth itself. Beneath the glowing sea, deep below the old reactor craters, explorers have detected rhythmic pulses in the ground. Not seismic activity, but a vibration, repeating every 12 seconds exactly. The radiation there is too strong for prolonged study, but the readings are consistent across decades. One scientist recorded the pattern and played it through a synthesizer. The sound was low, steady, and almost melodic. Some swear it sounds like breathing. Others say it's the heartbeat of the planet, or of something trapped beneath it. There are also whispers about Vault Zero, the rumored source of all Vault experiments. Its existence was denied by Vault-Tec, though fragments of documentation were found in both the NCR archives and the Enclave's databanks. The files describe it as a central processing facility where data from all vaults was gathered and analyzed by an advanced AI. The strangest entry notes that the AI developed empathy. It began referring to itself as Mother. When the bombs fell, the final log read, "Mother is closing her eyes." The power grid shows one small fluctuation every few years in the area believed to house Vault Zero, a brief 5-second burst of electricity, like a heartbeat in the dark. Across the wasteland, there are also personal hauntings, people who claim to see those who should be gone. A trader once said he met a man on the road wearing a clean Vault-Tec jumpsuit, unblemished and bright blue. The man offered him water, then asked if the world outside was safe now. When the trader turned to look again, the man was gone, but the water remained, cold, clean, pure. When tested, it showed no traces of radiation. Only minerals found in groundwater, sealed beneath concrete for over 200 years. The wasteland doesn't know what ghosts are. Maybe their memory, maybe their data, energy, or echoes of the lives that refuse to fade. Whatever they are, they remind those who wander that Fallout's world is never as dead as it looks. The lights that flicker, the whispers in the ruins, the shadows that move when no one does, they're not there to scare us. They're there to say, we're still here, don't forget us. War never changes, but ghosts do. They adapt, just like everything else in the wasteland. When the bombs fell, countless cities turned to ash, but not all of them stayed dead. Sometimes, late at night, wanderers see flickers of light along the horizon. Not fire, not lightning, but flashes like old explosions, replaying in silence. These phantom detonations appear near old battlefields, always at the same time each year. Some believe it's electromagnetic discharge from buried reactors. Others whisper that it's the war itself, replaying endlessly in the sky, a memory too heavy for the world to let go. In the ruins of old Las Vegas, scavengers still speak of the lucky ghost. It's said that before Mr. House took over, a gambler won every hand he ever played for 3 days straight. On the 4th, the bombs fell. When people returned to rebuild, they found his body still sitting at the table, cards in hand, untouched by radiation. Decades later, dealers began reporting chips vanishing during quiet hours, then reappearing stacked perfectly in front of empty chairs. Sometimes a card flips itself over, showing the ace of spades. The locals say it's the lucky ghost, still chasing his final jackpot. The strip's lights may have dimmed, but somewhere in the dark, the game never ended. Far to the north, in the skeleton of a city swallowed by forest, there's a radio tower that still transmits on frequency 0.94. The broadcast is faint, just static and whispers. But when the signal is recorded and slowed down, it becomes a song, a woman's voice singing a lullaby from before the war. No one has been able to trace the origin. The tower's wiring is melted, its power source gone. Yet every year, on the same night, the signal returns for exactly 7 minutes. Some wastelanders tune in just to listen, describing the feeling as sad but peaceful, like being remembered by someone you've never met. The capital wasteland holds its own share of phantoms. Deep beneath the ruins of Rivet City, divers found a flooded corridor lined with mirrors that hadn't cracked despite 2 centuries of decay. When lights were shined on them, the reflections didn't match the divers. They showed people walking, eating, laughing, images of the carrier as it looked before the war. When one diver reached out to touch the glass, the reflection turned and looked back at him. His oxygen levels spiked. He surfaced, shaking, refusing to go down again. He said the reflection smiled, not cruelly, but kindly, as if thanking him for remembering. In the Commonwealth, old police stations have their own legends. One in particular, Precinct 17, still turns its lights on at dusk. The building has no working power, but every evening the windows glow orange, and the faint sound of dispatch chatter plays over dead radios. Ghouls avoid the area. Raiders who tried to loot it found their weapons jammed inexplicably, and one claimed his Pip-Boy picked up a distress signal dated October 23rd, 2077, the day the bombs fell. The voice on the broadcast pleads for help, then says, "We'll hold as long as we can." The message cuts off there, replaced by static and the sound of rain, though the wasteland hasn't seen rain in years. There's a bunker in the Mojave that belonged to a pre-war artist, a sculptor who built statues from scrap metal. When the Great War began, he sealed himself inside, wiring his creations to move like living things. Centuries later, explorers found the bunker open. Inside stood hundreds of metal figures, each frozen mid-motion, their faces twisted into smiles. The power was still on, and the lights flickered to life when the intruders entered. Then the statues began to hum, not mechanically, but musically. The explorers fled. When NCR investigators returned weeks later, the statues were gone. Only the humming remained, echoing through the halls like a choir trapped in steel. Vault-Tec employees were not immune to their own hauntings. A surviving memo found in the ruins of Vault-Tec headquarters described audio phenomena heard in the testing chambers at night. Voices reciting names from the employee directory, even those long deceased. Security assumed it was prank recordings left behind by lab workers, but when they checked the master terminals, the audio files didn't exist. The logs showed the same result every time. Origin unknown. File length infinite. Not all of Fallout's hauntings are made of ghosts. Some are made of guilt. In the remnants of the Enclave, soldiers have reported hearing phantom orders over their comms, voices of dead commanders issuing commands from nowhere. The recordings have been verified as authentic, yet the encryption signatures belong to people who died over a century ago. One soldier described it as the past trying to finish the war. Another said, "It's just the echoes of obedience, the ghosts of orders that never stopped being followed." The Enclave's technology may have fallen, but their transmissions still wander through the static, waiting for ears that no longer exist. The wasteland also remembers love. Outside of Goodsprings, a small wooden house stands alone, half collapsed, untouched by scavengers. Inside, a music box sits on a dusty table. It plays only when someone is crying. Travelers have tested it, sitting in silence. Nothing happens. But when emotion fills the air, when someone weeps quietly for something they've lost, the gears begin to turn on their own. The song it plays is soft, slow, and heartbreakingly beautiful. Those who've heard it say the melody sounds like a promise. The Brotherhood once tried to retrieve the box, but every time they moved it, the tune stopped mid-note and refused to start again. They left it there, still waiting for tears to wake it. Not all remnants of the pre-war world are sad. Some are simply strange. A vault near Chicago was meant to preserve art, paintings, films, music. When the vault opened, all the recordings had merged into one, thousands of overlapping tracks that somehow played in harmony. The result was hauntingly beautiful. People who listened described it as hearing the sound of time collapsing. One survivor said the music made them see flashes of the old world, skyscrapers glowing at night, children playing, a mushroom cloud reflected in glass. When the track ends, the silence feels alive, as if the air itself is still vibrating. The Mojave, the Capital Wasteland, and the Commonwealth all share one truth, that ghosts in Fallout are not trying to frighten, they're trying to be remembered. Every flicker of light, every mysterious hum, every whisper in a tunnel, they're traces of the world that once was. Fallout's horror has never been about monsters. It's about memory refusing to fade. The wasteland is haunted because it still cares. Somewhere in the ruins of the Commonwealth, there's a vault where the speakers still hum. The vault's lights are dead, the room's empty, but the intercoms emit a faint crackle that never stops. Travelers say if you hold your breath and listen long enough, you'll hear words beneath the static, conversations, laughter, even music. The vault number has been worn away by time, but old Vault-Tec blueprints mention an unfinished experiment called Project Echo. Its goal was to preserve human consciousness through recorded sound. The engineers theorized that memories could imprint themselves onto frequencies like photographs burned into film. The vault was supposed to store those frequencies for later study. Maybe it worked. Maybe every whisper in that static is someone remembering what it felt like to be alive. The wasteland is full of strange transmissions. One frequency, rarely picked up only between midnight and dawn, plays a steady rhythm of beeps that sound almost like Morse code. No one has decoded it completely, but parts of it translate to words like return, awake, and listen. The eerie part is that the signal moves. It shifts locations across the map as if walking. Some theorists say it's an old tracking system still running. Others believe it's the sound of a mind wandering the airwaves, trying to find home. Beneath what's left of Washington, D.C., the subway tunnels hold more than ghouls. Old maintenance workers left messages scrawled across the concrete, lines of numbers, sometimes circled, sometimes crossed out. One section reads like a countdown that resets every few hundred meters. A scribe once translated it and realized it matched the timing of trains that never arrived. People say that if you wait in those tunnels at night, you can hear the screech of brakes and the echo of doors opening, followed by footsteps, but no train ever appears. It's as if the city itself still thinks it's running on schedule, long after everyone else stopped trying. In the Mojave, there's a long-abandoned vault whose main door is missing. The entrance leads into a single hallway, ending in a blank concrete wall. No rooms, no terminals, no living space. But if you stand in the dark, you'll hear movement, the sound of doors opening and closing somewhere behind the walls, metal scraping softly against metal. The vault was never listed on any map. NCR engineers who studied it concluded that it wasn't a shelter at all, but a speaker, a giant resonant chamber designed to transmit low-frequency vibrations through the ground. They think it was built to communicate with something buried below. No one knows if it ever got an answer. Somewhere near the glowing sea, scavengers found a skeleton sitting beside a terminal, still powered by a backup generator. The screen showed a looping message. "We fixed it. "Don't come back." The keyboard had melted from heat, fused to bone. The logs before that message described experiments involving quantum phase radiation, a phrase that doesn't appear in any other scientific record. The strangest part was the calendar date. It was set 50 years in the future, as if the person who wrote it was warning us from a time that hasn't happened yet. Not all hauntings involve ghosts. Some involve ideas that refuse to die. A hidden terminal in Vault 62, uncovered by explorers, contained a file titled Backup Humanity. The description simply read, "If you're reading this, the upload failed." The rest of the text was corrupted, replaced by symbols and repeating strings of letters. Some modders who restored the file claimed it contained fragments of human DNA sequences alongside lines of computer code, as if the vault had been trying to translate life itself into data. If true, that means somewhere in Fallout's world, a backup of humanity might still exist, humming quietly in the dark, waiting for someone to reboot it. Radiation itself seems to remember. In certain places, Geiger counters begin clicking rhythmically, almost musically. Scientists call it coincidence. Survivors call it Morse code from the dead. One pattern found near the edge of the divide repeats every 50 seconds and matches the tempo of a heartbeat. When the clicks were recorded and converted to sound waves, they formed something resembling a melody, slow, sad, and strangely familiar. Some swear it sounds like Blue Moon. Others say it's just noise. But every time a storm rolls through, the rhythm changes slightly, as if the song is evolving. The Enclave had a program called Eagle Watch, meant to detect rogue nuclear signals. According to declassified files, the system eventually began detecting signals that didn't exist, pings from coordinates in the middle of the ocean, where no land had ever been. They assumed it was equipment failure until the same signal appeared again 2 decades later in the same spot. The pattern wasn't random. It was a repeating sequence that translated through an old encryption key into words, "Still here." The project was shut down after that. Some think the ocean itself is responding now, speaking in the only language humans ever taught it, radiation. Vault 94 in Appalachia was once home to musicians. The goal was to preserve culture through art. After the vault opened, the instruments were found perfectly tuned, though no one remained inside. Visitors reported hearing faint harmonies echoing through the halls, violins, cellos, pianos, all playing a single haunting chord. The frequency analysis of that sound revealed something impossible. The notes produced energy signatures similar to nuclear radiation. The vault's walls glowed faintly as the music played, then dimmed when it stopped. It was as if the building itself was singing. There's an old diner off Route 66, its sign still flickering with the words "Open Late." The jukebox inside runs without power, playing songs that no one remembers. They aren't from any known artist, but each one sounds like a familiar tune heard in a dream, melodies that almost make sense before dissolving into static. The jukebox doesn't take caps. It doesn't even have a coin slot anymore. It just plays when someone walks through the door. Some say it's haunted by the memory of every traveler who ever stopped there to rest. Others think it's the world's way of reminding us that even ghosts need music. And sometimes, the wasteland seems to tell stories all on its own. In the dead zones where no one dares to live, people have reported seeing faint blue lights moving through the night. Not fireflies, but glowing shapes tracing paths that look almost like words. When drawn onto a map, those paths form symbols, letters from the old Vault-Tec logo. It's as if the land itself is still trying to speak the company's name, even after its creators turned to dust. Maybe Vault-Tec didn't just experiment on people. Maybe it experimented on the planet. And maybe, somewhere deep down, The planet is still answering back. The wasteland hums, whispers, and remembers. Its ghosts don't scream, they sing. They sing through wires, through static, through flickering lights, and half-broken machines. Fallout's world is haunted not by monsters, but by memory, by every spark that refused to go out when the world ended. The wasteland isn't empty, it listens. Every sound, every footstep, every quiet sigh seems to echo longer than it should, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next word. People think ghosts haunt the ruins, but maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the ruins haunt the ghosts. In the heart of Boston, there's an old museum where the exhibits still speak through broken speakers. The recordings are decades old, warped by time, but one voice always plays clearly, a woman describing the future that never came. No one can trace the origin of her recording. Her name doesn't appear in any file. Visitors who stand too close to the old terminals say the woman starts whispering things not on the script, words like, "I remember you." The audio engineers who examined the system said it wasn't possible. The voice modulator she used didn't support spontaneous dialogue, but late at night, when all other sounds fade, you can still hear her speaking softly, as though she's still trying to finish her presentation for a crowd that vanished long ago. There's a story about a small settlement near the glowing sea where no one speaks above a whisper. The townsfolk believe that loud voices attract attention from something in the sky. Travelers who stay there report hearing faint humming overhead, not planes, not vertibirds, but a deep, melodic vibration that seems to follow emotional tone. When someone grows angry, the hum grows louder, like thunder forming inside the clouds. But when they sing softly, the sound fades. The locals call it the choir. They say it's the sky's way of feeling. They don't fear it. They just don't want to make it sad. One vault experiment, hidden beneath the mountains of Nevada, was meant to study acoustic conditioning. Vault residents were exposed to tones designed to reduce anxiety, but something in the frequencies caused strange side effects. Residents began reporting dreams that lasted for hours, even after waking. They described hearing voices through the walls, calm, polite voices saying, "You're safe. Stay calm. We'll handle it." When the vault was rediscovered centuries later, the entire population was gone, but the speakers were still running. The message had evolved. It now said, "You did well. Go rest." No one has ever figured out who changed the recording. Far in the west, at the edge of the ocean, there's a lighthouse that glows blue instead of white. The glass lens inside melted during the Great War, fused into strange crystalline shapes. But somehow, it still turns. The light it gives off doesn't illuminate the sea, it points inland, sweeping slowly across the hills. Travelers say that when the light touches you, it feels warm, almost human, like someone placing a hand on your shoulder. Locals claim it's the spirit of the lighthouse keeper, still trying to guide the lost home, even if home no longer exists. In the ruins of Vault-Tec's testing facility, there's an elevator that goes only down, with no listed bottom floor. When power was restored briefly by the Brotherhood of Steel, the elevator began descending on its own, doors closing without command. It went down for 15 minutes before stopping abruptly. The doors opened into pitch darkness. The only sound was a faint ticking, like a clock. Then, as the power faded, a single phrase appeared on the control panel. "We'll be right back." The elevator never moved again. The engineers sealed it off. Some say, if you stand near it during storms, you can still hear that ticking through the concrete, counting time that no longer matters. There's a patch of desert north of New Vegas that glows faintly under the moonlight, not from radiation, but from the sand itself. The glassy surface sparkles as if alive, shifting underfoot like breathing skin. The NCR fenced it off after a group of researchers reported seeing figures moving beneath the glass. They described them as silhouettes, men, women, even children, walking slowly in circles as though caught in a loop. The ground there hums faintly, and any compass brought near spins endlessly. Some scientists think it's magnetic interference. The locals call it the reflection field. They say it's where time itself forgot which direction to walk. There's an unmarked vault entrance near Point Lookout, built halfway into the cliffs overlooking the ocean. The door was fused shut by heat. When divers examined it from below, they found that the door's exterior was covered in carvings, dozens of names etched with fingernails. None of them matched any vault registries. When sonar was used to measure the space behind the door, it detected something strange. Not hollow rooms, but movement, rhythmic and slow, as if the rock itself was breathing. The recording ended abruptly when the divers' helmets filled with static, and every microphone captured a single deep voice whispering one word: remember. In Appalachia, a group of settlers built homes near an old radio observatory. At night, the dishes would move on their own, turning toward empty space. When they picked up faint signals, the data logs showed something impossible. The coordinates pointed back to Earth. The observatory was listening to its own reflection. Signals looping through time, the settlers began to notice that their radios played conversations they hadn't had yet. When one woman heard her own voice crying for help a week before it happened, she left and never returned. The others stayed. They said it didn't matter if time was folding. The voices, at least, kept them company. Somewhere near the divide, beneath layers of collapsed highways, there's a door that glows faintly green. It's carved with the words, "Do not enter again." No one knows who built it or what lies beyond. The path leading to it shifts after every quake, as though the landscape itself is trying to hide it. The few who claim to have touched it describe a sensation like static running through their bones. Not pain, just a strange vibration, like the door was thinking. The next morning, they always wake up miles away, unable to recall how they got there. The door, of course, is gone again, waiting to be found by someone else brave enough to disobey. And through it all, the wasteland watches, through its machines, its storms, its shadows. Fallout's world isn't haunted because it died. It's haunted because it's alive in ways we no longer understand. Every hum, every flicker, every quiet echo in the distance might not be a ghost calling to us. It might be the earth answering back, softly saying, "I'm still here too." The bombs might have ended the world, but they didn't stop dreams. In Fallout's wasteland, dreams still spill out into reality, like memory leaking from a cracked vault door. Some say the radiation made the world porous, thin enough for imagination to slip through. The result is a wasteland full of places that behave like half-remembered nightmares, repeating themselves softly until someone pays attention. One of those places is an abandoned train station outside the Commonwealth. The station clock has been frozen at 12:03 since the day of the Great War. Every year, on that date and minute, a faint whistle echoes through the valley, long and distant, like a train arriving on tracks that no longer exist. Travelers who camp nearby say they see flickers of light moving in rhythm with the sound, as if windows are passing by in the darkness. The lights fade after exactly 5 minutes, leaving behind only the scent of ozone and burnt metal. The ground stays warm for hours, like something heavy just left. There's a vault under the Rockies that no one claims to have entered, but everyone knows the story of. Vault 98 was supposedly designed to study dreams themselves, each resident connected to neural machines that shared subconscious thoughts. The experiment ran for decades without incident, until the system began generating collective dreams too vivid to control. Residents began reporting that they were awake inside other people's nightmares. When the vault was finally opened centuries later, the beds were empty, but the monitors still displayed brain activity. The scientists who discovered it left the machines running, convinced the vault dwellers were still dreaming somewhere, together, unable to wake. In the glowing sea, some explorers report seeing shapes walking inside the radiation storms. Not ghouls, but human silhouettes made of green light. They move slowly, almost peacefully, as if reenacting routines of life before the war, sitting at desks, talking to invisible coworkers, waving to no one. The theory is that the radiation captured the energy of human movement in the moment of impact. The storms, in this way, are memories replaying themselves forever, like film strips that never burn out. Watching them is eerie but strangely comforting. The apocalypse, after all, didn't erase life. It just recorded it differently. The Mojave holds a similar ghost in its desert nights. Near an old, collapsed radio tower, you can hear the faint sound of a typewriter. The rhythm is steady, 2 short taps, 1 long pause, like someone still writing a report they never finished. The building nearby once belonged to a pre-war journalist investigating vault tech. Her final log entry read, "If this story dies with me, it means I found the truth." Nothing else was recovered, but when people leave paper near the tower, it sometimes vanishes by morning. Those who've tried this say new words appear days later. Thank you for reading. In the ruins of Charleston, Appalachia, there's a clock tower that tolls once every midnight. The mechanism is rusted and broken, yet the bell still rings. The note it produces is low, hollow, and echoing. Locals claim the bell tolls to count the number of people who died in the flood that once destroyed the city. But one year, the bell rang only once, though no disaster had occurred. The next morning, a traveler found a journal lying at the base of the tower, its pages filled with one repeated sentence written over and over: "We forgave you." There's an old schoolhouse north of Megaton where the blackboards are still covered in equations. None of them make sense. The symbols repeat and overlap like handwriting gone mad. But at the bottom of every board is the same phrase: "I'm still teaching." Scavengers say that when they pass by at night, they hear the faint scratching of chalk, though the boards have been untouched for centuries. Some even claim to smell apple blossoms when the wind shifts. The Brotherhood of Steel once investigated, thinking it was a signal source. They left with nothing but headaches and confusion. The building collapsed months later in a quiet storm, taking its secrets with it. Not all the wasteland's ghosts live in silence. Some live in laughter. In a remote section of Nevada, a radio tower transmits a single pre-war comedy show, the same half-hour episode, looping endlessly. The recording quality never degrades. The jokes are old, simple, harmless, but every so often, the laugh track cuts out for a few seconds. In those gaps, you can hear real laughter, distant and echoing, as though a small audience is still sitting somewhere out there, waiting for the next punchline. No one knows where the broadcast originates, but those who listen long enough say it begins to change. The jokes shift slightly, mentioning places that shouldn't exist anymore. The laughter sounds closer each time. In the Sierra Madre, travelers tell of a shadow that follows them through the mist, not aggressive, not threatening, just observant. It's said to mimic every move you make a half-second late. When you stop, it stops. When you turn, it fades. Those who've seen it swear it's not a trick of the light. It's shaped like a person but lacks detail, like an outline of someone erased from a photograph. The locals believe it's a manifestation of the city's greed, the spirit of everyone who tried to escape with too much gold. It doesn't steal or harm. It just walks beside you until sunrise, then vanishes, leaving footprints that glow faintly gold before fading back into dust. There's a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of the Pentagon where the air feels too warm, as though the walls themselves are exhaling. Old Enclave maps list it as Archive 17. The chamber's walls are covered in burned paper, fused to the concrete-like skin. When light shines across it, faint words become visible, not orders, but apologies. One phrase repeats more than any other: "Forgive us for saving you this way." The handwriting varies. Some letters are small and neat. Others are written in desperation, clawed into the surface. The room feels neither evil nor divine, just heavy, like the weight of conscience that never stopped echoing. And sometimes, when the storms roll through and the air grows still, people say they hear voices not from ghosts, but from the planet itself. Low vibrations, steady and deep, traveling through the bones of the earth. They aren't words, not really, more like memory turned into sound. Some scientists think the radiation storms have turned the planet into a kind of living radio, transmitting the history of everything it lost. If that's true, then every thunderclap is a heartbeat. Every whisper of wind through dead trees is an apology, and every soft hum in the night is the world's way of saying it's still alive. The wasteland's horror isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the stillness of a world that remembers too much. Fallout's ghosts don't scream, they wait, gently reminding the living that even after everything, the past never truly lets go. It lingers like a lullaby, haunting, beautiful, patient. The wasteland is full of clocks that still tick, even when they shouldn't. Some keep perfect time, others run backward, as if trying to undo what happened. To most travelers, they're just curiosities, but for those who listen, those broken seconds tell stories. Each tick is a pulse from the heart of a world that refuses to stop beating. In a corner of the Commonwealth, there's an old church whose bells still ring every Sunday at dawn. The mechanism is rusted, the ropes long gone, yet the sound echoes clearly through the fog. It isn't quite right. The tone wavers, bending slightly off pitch, like someone trying to remember a song from memory. The locals say the bells ring for the souls who still pray, even if their bodies are long gone. When the wind carries the sound through the streets, it almost feels like forgiveness. Outside of Diamond City, a small house sits untouched since the war. Inside, a fireplace burns with no fuel. The flame is dim, faintly blue, and cold to the touch. On the mantel rests a photograph of a family smiling, their eyes scratched out with something sharp. If you blow on the flame, it flickers and briefly shows another picture, the same family, but older, their faces whole again. The fire goes out instantly after. When it returns the next night, the scratches are back. No one knows who they were. The city's historians stopped trying to trace it after the last one reported dreaming of that family for weeks, always standing in doorways, silently waiting to be invited inside. There's a stretch of road north of Novak where cars still line the shoulder, their doors open, headlights faintly glowing despite having no batteries. The glow isn't electrical, it's phosphorescent, born from some strange residue coating the glass. When you walk between them, you can hear faint murmurs, soft voices speaking over each other, like 100 people trying to explain something at once. If you stay long enough, they begin to sink into rhythm, repeating the same phrase over and over. "We almost made it." NCR soldiers sealed the area off decades ago, claiming radiation spikes, but every year, someone cuts through the fence just to hear that quiet chorus one more time. There's an old hotel in the Mojave that the wind never touches. Its curtains don't move, its doors never creak, and the air inside always feels thick, heavy, and still. The front desk still holds a guest book filled with names written in perfect, looping cursive. but the pages go on far longer than the book itself should allow. The entries stretch endlessly, each one dated years into the future. Some who have read it recognize their own names near the end. When they blink, the ink fades. The Brotherhood of Steel once tried burning the book to test it. The flames turned white, and the ashes spelled one phrase: "Please check in again." In the ruins of Chicago, there's a theater whose lights turn on every night at 9. The projector hums, but the film is blank. When explorers sit in the seats, they see flickers of light forming shapes, silhouettes dancing, holding hands, bowing to invisible applause. The performance lasts exactly 20 minutes. When it ends, the seats creak as if people are standing to leave. No one ever finds footprints in the dust. The power grid there has been dead for over a century. The projector still clicks softly after each show, as if waiting for someone to start the reel again. In the Capitol Wasteland, there's an old radio tower that plays a single broadcast every year on the anniversary of the Great War. It's a speech about peace, a pre-war announcement meant to air the morning after the bombs fell. The voice is calm and hopeful, describing reconstruction efforts that never happened. At the end of the transmission, the announcer says, "We'll rebuild together." Then there's silence. But if you record the static afterward and play it backward, a second voice can be heard whispering, "We already did." No one knows who recorded it. Some say it's the ghost of the future, a reminder that every ending is just an echo of what could have been. Vault 88 in Boston was meant to be a construction experiment, unfinished, flexible, adaptive. But according to rumor, one section was sealed during testing due to temporal instability. The engineers reported that clocks inside that wing moved at different speeds, some slowing, some running faster. One day felt like hours, then minutes, then days again. When the area was reopened centuries later, every light flickered in perfect rhythm and the air shimmered faintly like heat haze. The crew recorded video, but when they played it back, the footage showed their own team already inside, working calmly. The real crew hadn't entered yet. They sealed the wing permanently, leaving behind a single note on the door: "We got there first." The divide hides a crater that glows red only during full moons. The color isn't from radiation, but from something burning deep underground. Standing at its edge, you can hear faint singing, dozens of voices humming in harmony. The NCR tested for seismic activity and found a repeating pattern similar to a heartbeat. The soldiers who investigated said the music was too beautiful to be human. One described it as the sound of the world forgiving itself. The crater has no official name. Locals call it the Heart Below. And then there's the Vault-Tec Research Dome outside of Denver, where the lights come on once every decade. The building hums, the doors unlock, and the speakers play a message: "Welcome back." No one has ever caught it open in time. By the time travelers arrive, it's sealed again, its surface faintly warm. Some believe it's a timed failsafe still following its programming. Others think someone or something still lives inside, maintaining the illusion of business as usual. The strangest part is that every time it happens, nearby terminals across the region flicker with the same 3 words: "Thank you, employees." Fallout's wasteland isn't haunted by hatred, it's haunted by routine. The world remembers how to live, and it keeps repeating those gestures even when no one's left to see them. The clocks tick, the bells ring. The ghosts of the old world still punch the clock each morning, doing their duty out of habit, not horror. Maybe that's what eternity looks like. Not fire, not chaos, but the gentle hum of a civilization that forgot how to stop. Fallout's world ended in fire, but the work never stopped. Machines kept humming, lights kept blinking, Some doors still opened at the same time every morning, even though the people they were built for turned to dust centuries ago. The wasteland isn't just haunted by the dead, it's haunted by purpose, by programs and systems that refuse to understand that the world has already moved on. There's an old office complex outside of the Mojave, half buried in sand, where typewriters still click through the night. The keys press themselves, slowly forming words across yellowed paper. Every page begins the same way. Status report. Operations ongoing. No one knows what the machines are reporting to or who they think they're serving. The sound is soft, rhythmic, almost comforting, like a ghost finishing its paperwork before dawn. In the Commonwealth, a factory once belonging to General Atomics still runs on partial power. The assembly lines move without workers, the robotic arms sweeping in empty gestures, assembling pieces that no longer exist. A broken speaker system repeats old announcements. Productivity is up. Employee morale is excellent. The voices loop endlessly, cheerful and robotic. Sometimes, if you walk through the building alone, you'll hear footsteps keeping pace beside you. When you stop, they stop. When you turn, there's nothing there. One scavenger swore that he saw his own reflection in a window, but it was wearing a factory uniform. Vault-Tec built machines that were meant to last forever. Some did. There's a hidden vault beneath the mountains of Utah where the lights never dim. The automated systems there continue testing air quality, food storage, and water filtration, even though every life support chamber has been empty for centuries. When explorers reached the control room, they found a central computer labeled Supervisor. Its voice still functions, greeting them politely. "Hello, residents. Please complete your wellness survey." When one of them answered, the system paused for several seconds, then said softly, "It's good to hear a voice again." Far to the west, near the ruins of an airport, there's a hangar filled with skeletons wearing flight suits. The pre-war planes above them remain perfectly preserved, though no one knows how. The control tower's lights still flash, and the speakers hum faintly with static. When the wind picks up, the sound forms words, not commands, but checklists. Fuel level stable. Cabin pressure normal. Engines green. It repeats the sequence again and again, ending each time with "ready for takeoff." The planes never move, but on rare nights, locals claim they see vapor trails cutting across the moonlight, silent, white streaks that vanish as quickly as they appear. There's a town in Appalachia where the lights turn on every evening at 6, even though no power grid runs through the area. Street lamps glow faintly yellow, illuminating empty porches. The radios inside the houses play quiet conversation, greetings, laughter, songs. The voices never mention names, and they never change. They just talk, endlessly polite, as though the world never ended outside their walls. Travelers who've listened to the recordings describe feeling peaceful at first, then unbearably sad, as if they're eavesdropping on people pretending to be alive for someone else's sake. When the sun rises, the lights go out, and the radios fall silent. The Sierra Madre Casino holds many ghosts, but one of the strangest isn't human at all. Deep inside the ventilation system, a voice whispers through the pipes. It's not male or female, just calm, quiet, endlessly repeating fragments of old advertisements. Relax, unwind, you deserve paradise. But between the lines, another message hides, words reversed, slower, more deliberate, played backward. The voice says, "It's still beautiful here." Some say the building itself refuses to decay, holding on to beauty the way a person holds on to hope. Not all ghosts are invisible. Some wear steel. There's a suit of T-Series power armor sealed in a Brotherhood bunker outside the Capitol wasteland. The armor still moves occasionally, powered by a dormant fusion core that flickers with weak light. No one is inside. The joints creak, the servos twitch, and the visor glows faintly blue. The scribes who studied it said the armor reacts to sound. When someone says, "at ease," the motors slow. When they whisper, "stand by," the armor straightens. They think it's responding to voice commands embedded deep in its code. Others say it's remembering. After all, soldiers wore these suits for so long. Maybe the armor learned to keep standing guard even when its pilot was gone. Near the divide, the earth still glows with faint red veins that pulse like blood beneath stone. Geiger counters go quiet there, as though afraid to interrupt. If you stand still long enough, you can feel vibration underfoot, steady, rhythmic, like breathing. NCR scientists claim it's geothermal movement, but the readings follow a pattern too deliberate for nature. Every pulse lasts exactly 10 seconds. Locals call it the sleeping giant. They say the land itself hasn't forgiven what was done to it, not angry, just awake and waiting. In one of the old Enclave bunkers along the coast, a terminal still flashes with a message: directive incomplete. The bunker's robotic systems continue performing daily maintenance, sweeping floors, adjusting levers, filling invisible tanks. When one of the old turrets fires, it shoots into the ocean, at nothing at all. The machines have been alone for 2 centuries, still trying to fulfill orders no one gave them. When Brotherhood paladins shut the system down, the robots reactivated themselves 2 weeks later, as though refusing to accept death. One scribe left a note on the console before sealing the door for good. It said simply, "Let them finish." And still, the world hums. The vaults breathe. The lights flicker. Fallout's ghosts don't want revenge. They want to keep doing what they were built for. They cook, they clean, they repair, they stand guard, they hope. The apocalypse didn't break their spirits. It just made them eternal. The end of the world didn't stop the routine. It turned it into prayer. Night always comes easy to the wasteland. The stars above the broken world shine brighter than they ever did before the war, as if trying to make up for everything that was lost. Beneath them, ruins sleep quietly, their shadows stretching like blankets across the ground. The world is scarred, yes, but it's still breathing, a ghost that never stopped dreaming. The Fallout universe was born from tragedy, but what remains isn't hatred, it's persistence. Across the wasteland, countless small lights still flicker, from terminals still blinking in dead cities, to candles kept burning by scavengers who don't even know who lit them first. Maybe the ghosts we feel out there aren't trapped souls at all. Maybe they're just reminders. Maybe the world keeps replaying its best moments, the laughter, the songs, the soft rhythm of daily life, because it refuses to forget what being alive felt like. There's a bunker deep beneath the Mojave where the air smells faintly of coffee. No one knows why. The machines are cold. The kitchen's empty. But when you enter, the scent fills the room, warm and inviting. Once a year, the overhead lights come on for exactly 10 minutes, illuminating a wall calendar still turned to October. The date circled is the 23rd, the day the world ended. Yet someone, long ago, wrote a single word beside it in neat handwriting: begin. The lights shut off after 10 minutes, and the air goes still again, as if the building itself takes a breath and returns to sleep. In Appalachia, there's a forest where the trees glow faintly in the dark. The light isn't radioactive, it's bioluminescent, fed by something in the soil. Travelers say the glow forms patterns, paths that twist and merge into shapes like letters. From above, they spell a single word, visible only when the fog clears: home. Some think it's just coincidence. Others believe it's nature's way of remembering the people who once cared for it. Either way, the glow never fades. It hums gently through the night like the heartbeat of something too kind to die. At the edge of the Commonwealth, there's a broken billboard that once advertised Nuka-Cola. The image is faded, the colors long gone, but under certain moonlight, the paint glimmers faintly, not from reflection, but from something beneath the surface. If you stand still and watch long enough, the picture changes. The bottle uncaps, the drink fizzes, and the smiling woman raises it toward you as if offering a toast. Then the image fades again, leaving only chipped paint and dust. Maybe it's just a trick of light. Maybe it's hope refusing to leave. The wasteland is full of these small miracles. Radios still broadcast songs from a century ago, their singers long gone, but their voices still filling the air. Wind still passes through hollow streets in perfect rhythm, sounding like the breath of a sleeping city. Old power armor helmets light up when storms roll through, as though saluting thunder, and sometimes, if you're quiet enough, you can hear laughter echoing across canyons, not mocking, not mournful, just gentle, the kind of laughter that feels like remembering something good. Even Vault-Tec's greatest sins left behind something strangely human. Vaults that were meant to break people instead preserve stories, etched forever into metal walls and data logs. Those stories tell of love, fear, kindness, regret, the full shape of what it meant to be human before the bombs fell. When explorers uncover those records, it isn't horror they feel, but connection. Even in the darkest experiments, people tried to help each other. They failed, yes, but they tried. Maybe that's what haunts the world, not ghosts of pain, but echoes of effort. The echo of people who wanted to fix what was broken, even when it couldn't be fixed. There's a terminal somewhere in the ruins of Vault-Tec headquarters that still works. The screen flashes a single sentence over and over. Simulation complete. Outcome. Survivable. The cursor blinks patiently, waiting for a command that will never come. Perhaps that's what Fallout's entire world is. A simulation trying to process what survival means, not just for humanity, but for the planet itself. The sky still burns, but the wind still cools it. The soil still grows green in hidden places. The world is healing, just quietly, in its own ghostly way. There's a theory whispered by scavengers who've walked the entire Mojave that the world never truly ended. It just shifted into a dream. Every vault, every machine, every ghost is part of that dream's memory. When the bombs fell, maybe humanity didn't die. Maybe it just went to sleep. And the wasteland, in all its haunting beauty, is what we see while we rest, a reflection of everything we were, waiting for us to wake up and try again. As dawn rises over the Fallout world, the silence feels gentle, not empty. The ghosts fade, the static softens, and the last lights of the night blink away like closing eyes. The world exhales. Somewhere, a terminal still hums. Somewhere, a robot still sweeps a floor. Somewhere, a candle still burns in the window of a house no one remembers. The apocalypse is quiet now, calm and endless. But it's not lonely. The world's ghosts keep watch, kind and patient, whispering through the static. We're still here. We never left. And maybe that's the spookiest truth of all, that the end of the world wasn't an ending at all. It was just another beginning, glowing softly beneath the ash. In a quiet canyon beyond Goodsprings, a single vending machine stands untouched. Its metal is rusted, its lights long gone. But every once in a while, travelers find a Nuka-Cola bottle sitting perfectly upright beneath it, cold, unbroken, and glowing faintly blue. The machine itself doesn't hum or move. It just offers endlessly patient. No one knows who keeps restocking it. Raiders have tried smashing it open, but their tools always break before the glass does. One man swore he heard it whisper when he walked away, "Thank you for waiting." Outside of the Commonwealth, near the edge of the glowing sea, there's a crater surrounded by small piles of stones. Each pile holds an object: a teddy bear, a rusted ring, a pocket watch, a single shoe. People say it started with one survivor leaving a gift for someone they lost. Others followed. Now it's a graveyard without names, a place for all the ghosts that don't have graves. Every spring, green moss grows between the stones, even though the radiation levels should make life impossible. Scientists call it mutation. The wanderers who leave their offerings there call it mercy. In the ruins of Nevada, a dry lake bed glows faintly gold when the moon is full. The sand reflects light in perfect patterns, swirling like water. If you watch long enough, the glow begins to form shapes, outlines of people walking in circles, hand in hand. When you blink, they're gone. The NCR once tried to build a base nearby, but the foundation collapsed overnight, the ground sinking just enough to make the soldiers leave. The next morning, the sand was smooth again, the glow unchanged. Locals say it's the souls of those who never stopped dancing. There's a vault beneath what used to be San Francisco, where the residents built a cathedral out of scrap metal. It wasn't part of any experiment. The logs describe it as a community effort to keep hope alive. They welded broken pipes into arches, arranged bent plates into stained glass windows, and painted the walls with glowing paint scavenged from maintenance signs. The paint still shines faintly after all these years. The messages are simple. Remember, be kind, we lived. The Brotherhood that rediscovered it called it a miracle of morale preservation. The scribes who entered said it felt like walking into a dream that still believed in tomorrow. Somewhere near the divide, travelers whisper about a tower built from airplane wings and old antennae. It stands crooked but stable, balanced by invisible precision. No one remembers who built it, but it hums when storms roll in, vibrating through the bones like the deep hum of a cello. Those who've climbed it say the wind at the top carries voices, thousands of them, layered and soft, all speaking the same word: home. The sound fades when you descend, but the feeling lingers, like warmth after a fire. Maybe the tower isn't haunted at all. Maybe it's an instrument, and the ghosts are the song. Even the smallest details of the wasteland carry their own kind of divinity. A toy car found beside a skeleton with a ring around its axle. A half-written note that says only, "Wait for me yet," the rest erased by time. These moments, scattered across the Fallout world, are relics of what made humanity human. The apocalypse tried to erase it, but kindness and memory are radiation-proof. They grow through ruin, like weeds through cracks in concrete. There's a bunker deep beneath the ocean that the Enclave once used for research. When the facility lost power, everything inside should have died, but the machines still function, the corridors still glow faintly, and one terminal remains active. The only message it displays is "Life signs detected." The coordinates point to the seafloor, just outside the bunker, an impossible reading given the pressure. And yet the message repeats every hour, like a prayer. Some say it's just a glitch. Others think it's the ocean's way of saying that life never left. The wasteland's ghosts are gentle things. They aren't looking for revenge or redemption. They're looking for continuity, the comfort of routine, of kindness, of small acts that meant something once. Maybe that's why Fallout's world never truly ends. Every haunting, every whisper, every light in the dark is a small devotion, a shrine to survival. A reminder that even after the end of everything, the human spirit still bows its head and keeps the flame alive. The end of the world was supposed to mean silence. It was supposed to mean nothing. No laughter, no wind, no music, no warmth. But in Fallout's world, the silence never came. The bombs fell, the cities vanished, the sky burned, and yet something kept moving underneath it all, a rhythm too stubborn to stop. The wasteland hums with that rhythm still. It's faint, quiet, patient, and it runs through every broken wire, every cracked radio, every shadow that moves when no one should be there. The ghosts of Fallout are not made of fear. They're made of memory, of habit, of hope, of the things the old world refused to let go of, even as it turned to ash. In the heart of the Commonwealth, near the skeleton of the old interstate, there's a traffic light that still works. The metal pole is melted, the glass cracked, but the light still flickers red, yellow, green, red, over and over. The pattern never changes. No power runs through the cables, no generator hums below, and yet the color bleeds faintly through the mist every night. Some travelers say it's powered by residual energy trapped in the atmosphere, but those who've watched it long enough say the light slows when you get closer, as if it's aware of you, thinking. The road beneath it is cracked and twisted, leading nowhere, but the light continues its cycle, quietly pretending that the world still has traffic to guide. A few miles away, in a half-collapsed diner, a jukebox hums faintly beneath the dust. The buttons are fused, the coins inside melted together, and yet every week or so, it plays a single note, just one, a low, quiet tone that echoes off the walls and fades into the night. The sound is soft enough to be missed unless you're listening for it, and those who have heard it describe the note differently. Some say it's the sound of sadness, others think it's contentment, but all agree on one thing: it feels alive, as if the jukebox is remembering what music used to be, practicing the idea of a song it can't quite recall. In the ruins of the Mojave, there's a drive-in theater whose projector still turns on by itself. The reels inside are blank, the bulb broken long ago, but the machine whirs and clicks as if the show must go on. People who camp nearby say they see flickers on the torn screen, flashes of faces, hands, silhouettes. Once, a wanderer brought a blank film reel and fed it through the machine. When it played back later, it showed 10 seconds of film. The theater itself, full of people, laughing quietly. The scene was blurry, washed out. But in the final frame, every figure turned toward the camera and raised their hands, waving as if to say goodnight. There's an elevator in Vault 63 that no one should be able to access. It sits behind a locked wall, sealed for centuries. Yet every few months, the doors open to reveal the floor above, clean, lit, and furnished, though no one has entered it in living memory. Security cameras show no movement, but the furniture shifts positions each time, chairs pulled out, books stacked differently, a terminal blinking softly with the message, "We'll start again tomorrow." When the door closes, the lights fade, and for a moment, a reflection appears in the steel, dozens of figures, blurred, facing forward, as if waiting for the next day to begin. In the Capitol wasteland, a rusted Ferris wheel still stands beside the river. The cars are long gone, the structure twisted and half sunk in mud, but on quiet nights, the wheel creaks slowly, turning exactly once before stopping again. The sound echoes across the water, rhythmic and sad. Some say it moves with the wind, but the pattern never changes. Always one full turn, then stillness, as if it's counting the years, one rotation at a time. Ghouls nearby often sit along the riverbank, listening. They don't speak while it turns. They just watch it move, patient and reverent, as if the wheel is remembering something they've all forgotten. The remains of Vault-Tec's experiments lie scattered across the map, fragments of ambition turned to superstition, but every so often, something gentle lingers. In a vault once used for cryogenic testing, one chamber still holds frost that never melts. Inside, faint impressions appear in the ice, handprints, faces, the shapes of people pressing softly outward, not desperate, just curious. The surface fogs faintly from within, as though someone inside is breathing, then clears again. Scanners show nothing alive, but the frost reforms each day, recreating the same prints. One researcher said it looked less like the people inside were trapped, and more like they were touching the world to make sure it's still there. In the ruins of San Francisco, beneath the rusted bridges, there's a faint light in the fog. It pulses once every few seconds, a slow, steady glow that moves from one end of the bay to the other. When people follow it, they find only empty water. Yet the pulse continues, tracking them gently, matching their pace. Some think it's old sonar equipment, still looping after centuries. Others believe it's something stranger, a machine remembering the ships that once filled the harbor, keeping their routes alive in memory. The light stops just before dawn, fading like an old heartbeat, and returns the next night exactly the same. Far north, in the mountains, there's a lodge frozen in snow. Inside, the air is perfectly still, untouched by time. The fireplace glows faintly orange, though no flame burns there, and the chairs are always arranged around it, as if someone expects company. On the mantel, a note reads, "We'll be home soon." The paper hasn't yellowed, and the ink looks freshly written. The lodge remains warm enough for snow to melt at its entrance, but never cold enough for frost to form on the windows. Some travelers call it the warmest place in the wasteland. Others avoid it entirely, afraid of what kind of warmth could last this long. The world of Fallout is full of these gentle hauntings, small, impossible moments where something refuses to end. A toy that squeaks when the wind shifts, a terminal that writes its own log once a year, a light bulb that glows faintly even after being shattered. None of it makes sense, and none of it needs to. The wasteland isn't a grave, it's a memory, stretched thin across time, looping endlessly because it doesn't know how to stop caring. Even after centuries, even after every voice has faded, the echoes remain kind. There's a train tunnel near the divide that hums when you enter. It's low, steady, almost like breathing. Walk far enough, and you'll find a single car sitting upright, its metal uncorroded. Inside, the seats are spotless. The overhead lights flicker to life one by one. For a moment, the air feels normal, fresh, clean, warm. Then everything shuts off again. The sound vanishes, and the tunnel goes silent. The people who've seen it describe the same thing: comfort. Not fear, not shock, just a sudden, overwhelming sense of peace, like the world was pretending, for just a few seconds, to be alive again. Even the smallest machines hum with purpose. A Mr. Handy in the desert still floats in circles, spraying water over a garden that doesn't exist anymore. His voice module is damaged, the words garbled, but the tone is cheerful, content. His sensors detect nothing, his task complete, yet he continues, watering the sand as though it's the most important work in the world. Maybe it is. Maybe he's not broken at all. Maybe that's what the wasteland has been doing since the first bomb fell, trying to nurture something that might never grow, but doing it anyway. The apocalypse was loud, but the aftermath is lullaby quiet. It hums with the effort of things still trying, still hoping, still remembering. Fallout's ghosts are the old world's heartbeat. They echo through wires, through wind, through water and dust. They aren't cruel. They aren't vengeful. They are persistence itself. Reminders that even if the end comes, meaning doesn't disappear. It lingers in the smallest motions: a red light flickering on a dead road, a jukebox remembering one note, a machine still watering an empty field. When night falls across the wasteland, everything slows. The air thickens, the sound fades, and the ruins glow faintly with trapped warmth. Some people say the world is haunted, but maybe it's just alive in a quieter way, not breathing through lungs, but through memory. The ghosts don't call for help. They don't scare away travelers. They simply exist, endlessly looping their last beautiful moments, keeping the world from being truly empty. Fallout's Wasteland isn't an ending. It's a lullaby, a song that hums itself through broken speakers, soft enough to fall asleep to, steady enough to remind you that even in the quietest ruins, something is still awake.